anything worthwhile is going to be uncomfortable. Any goal that you want to achieve that's worthwhile in your life require all-in effort.
All in. We've got to be all in on our ventures. If you're in the game, make sure you're in it all the way. And then that game will be your game.
We all have weakness. We all have gaps. We all have issues. We all have struggles. And the first step to working your weakness is admitting your weakness. How many know denial is dangerous? Just because you ignore it doesn't mean it's going to go away. But many times we conceal things and we cover things up because we're concerned that if we'll expose it, we're going to be embarrassed. Have you ever felt exposed before?
So if you want to do something, if you thought about something you want to do, take it head on. Decide that you're going to start looking at it, start doing research on it, start tackling it, start becoming involved in whatever and wherever it might lead you to begin to explore the possibilities in that particular thing that you're seeking so that you can begin to learn all you can about it. Decide that you're going to face it, that whatever shortcomings you have, that you're going to strengthen yourself there. Whatever training that's required, that you're going to go get that training. George Washington Carver would say, do what you can, where you are with what you have, and never be satisfied. S.B. Fuller used to say, and you heard Joe Dudley talk about, always strive to be more than that which you are. Yeah, don't get satisfied with yourself. Always know that wherever you are, you can enjoy more, that you deserve more. Why you can't begin to live life on your terms. Always something there to block you, to keep you where you are, and keep you from beginning to develop your true greatness. Always some fear. How do we handle it? If you've been using the fact that you don't have enough money or you don't have the education, take it head on. Go get the education.
But look at what they've done to you. They've made you an employee. And they told you where you can be employed and where you cannot be employed. And then they restrict how far you can rise in that employment.
Living my life on my terms. That's important. Not to give up on your dream, not to give up on yourself. Now, are there going to be some moments when you want to give up? Yes. Will there be some moments when it's going to seem like it's impossible? The disappointment that you're experiencing, that you're going to say, it's not worth it? Yes, that's going to be right there for you. It's going to be in your face.
When you start grinding, when you start waking up early, when you start keeping your word to yourself, to your boss, when you go into 120, when you all in by any means necessary, you start seeing stuff and you start experiencing stuff and you start having stuff that people who are not doing that, they never get. And I promise you, when I go out, I will be the best version of me. When I go out with my son, with my daughter, and with my wife saying, our husband gave 120%.
And until your thinking change, you are contaminated leadership. I've never heard such a level of teaching on leadership. Why? Because unless your mind changes, you will never become a leader. Attitude determines your limitation, which means that your belief system determines how far you go. You can never lead beyond your attitude and your belief system. And that's why your life is what you think it should be and exactly what it is. Attitude is the manifestation of your personal philosophy.
So you've got to decide, wait. Even if things don't work out, even if I experience defeat, a failure, that does not make me a failure. It's a difference between failing and being a failure. If things don't work out, if you don't produce the results you want, that's all. But don't confuse who you are with the results that you produce.
Be transformed by changing the way you think, because my thoughts control my life. Your feelings don't shape your life. Your beliefs do. And it doesn't even have to be true. If you believe it, it's going to shape your life. And a lot of you were taught things as a kid about you that just weren't true. And years later, you're still acting on false information.
The process of building self-confidence is actually very easy, believe it or not. Self-confidence is self-trust. Self-confidence is building a reputation with yourself that you keep your word to you, that you keep the promises you make to you. Somebody with self-confidence has a reputation with themselves that I do the things I say I'm going to do. Build your self-confidence, and the greater and greater your self-confidence get, it minimizes the impact self-doubt has on us. It's important because you have to understand one thing about the doubts and the negative thoughts you have about yourself. These are not your thoughts. You weren't born doubting. You weren't born discouraged. You weren't born thinking negative things about yourself.
True leadership is self-discovery. True leadership begins with an individual discovering something about themselves. That's when it really begins. And you will never become a true leader until you are introduced to yourself.
Don't do that. Be quiet. Sit down. Be a good boy. Be a good girl. Maybe it was criticism you received as a little one that you may not even remember to this day. Those were thoughts that were placed in you and given to you by an external source at some time in your life. It could even be our parents. It could have been a school teacher. It could have been ridicule at school from other children. But when you were young in your formative years, these negative thoughts about yourself were planted in you by an external source. When I meet someone who is not self-confident, I know this is someone who has consistently made promises to themselves they've not kept. They've started a diet and done it for a while but not kept it. And so they have a process and a habit in their life more often than not of not keeping the promises they don't make to other people. They don't keep the promises they make to themselves.
It's impossible for you to have continuous success without having self-discipline in your life. Impossible. And my greatest challenge as a leader is your greatest challenge as a leader. And that is every day keeping people climbing. Because they don't want to climb. They want to coast to success.
I just want to tell you, don't let this chapter that you're going through make you in your story. Don't let depression lie to you and tell you that you're not enough, that tells you that there's no more better days, that tells you that your best days are behind you, that tells you you're a nobody, that tells you that you're better off dead. Don't let it lie to you, because it's been lying to you so long that you're starting to believe that's true. You're starting to live that out.
And they just kind of hope that if they're at the right place at the right time, something wonderful will happen to them. Everything worthwhile is uphill. All the way. Not partially uphill. And the challenge that we all have is we don't mind climbing uphill for 3 or 4 days, as long as we can coast for a couple.
Stuck in there as a firm belief. That's why we have to guard our beliefs so preciously, because our mind goes to work on finding these legs, these references, which are real experiences in our life, to prove to us that that belief is true. And so although you may believe it to be true about you, these doubts and negative thoughts you have, these were not your original thoughts.
Of all the subjects we've covered so far and are about to cover, none is more important than covering the disciplines for success. What's at the core of achieving the good life? The major key to the good life. The major key is not in learning how to set goals. It is not in learning how to better manage your time. It is not in mastering the attributes of leadership. Every day in 1,000 different ways, we are trying to improve ourselves by learning how to do things. We spend a lifetime gathering knowledge in classrooms, in textbooks, in experiences. Now, if knowledge is power, if knowledge is the forerunner to success, then why do we fall short of our objectives? Why, in spite of all our knowledge and in spite of our collective experiences, do we find ourselves aimlessly wandering, settling for a life of existence rather than a life of substance? There may be many answers to this question. Your answers may be different than your associates or your spouses or your friends. While there may be many answers to this question, the fundamental answer is the absence of discipline. Applying all that we know. That's the key word, discipline, self-discipline. We might add one more word here, consistent. Consistent self-discipline. It doesn't really matter how smart you are or how much you know if you don't use it. It doesn't really matter that you graduated magna cum laude if you're stuck in a low-paying job. It doesn't really matter if you attended every seminar that comes to town if you don't apply what you've learned. Better than knowledge is applied knowledge. And once we've applied our knowledge, we must study the results of that process. Apply our knowledge, study the results. Refine our approach. Finally, by trying and observing and refining and trying again, our knowledge will inevitably produce worthy results, admirable results. And with the joy and results of our efforts, we continue to apply, to learn, to observe, to fuel our ambition with the positive reinforcement of continued progress. Pretty soon, we'll find that we're swept into a spiral of achievement, a vertical rise to success. And the ecstasy of that total experience makes for a life of triumph over tragedy, dullness, and mediocrity. But for this whole process to work for us, we must first master the art of discipline, self-discipline, consistent self-discipline. It takes consistent self-discipline to master the art of setting goals, to master the art of time management, to master the art of leadership, to master the art of parenting and relationships. If we don't make consistent self-discipline part of our daily lives, the results we seek will be sporadic and elusive. It takes a consistent effort to truly manage our valuable time, or we'll be consistently frustrated. Our time will be eaten up by others whose demands are stronger than our own. It takes discipline to conquer the nagging voices in our minds. The fear of failure, the fear of success, the fear of poverty, the fear of a broken heart. It takes discipline to keep trying when that nagging voice within us brings up the possibility of failure. It takes discipline to admit our errors and recognize our limitations. The voice of the human ego speaks to all of us. Sometimes the voice of ego says that we should magnify our value beyond our results. It leads us to exaggerate, to not be totally honest. It takes discipline to be totally honest, both with ourselves and with others. Be certain of one thing: every exaggeration of the truth, once detected by others, destroys our credibility and makes all that we say and do suspect. As soon as a business colleague figures out that we tend to exaggerate, guess what? They'll always think we exaggerate, and they'll never quite hold us in the same regard again. The tendency to exaggerate, distort, or even withhold the truth is an inherent part of all of us.